on this episode of The Brothers Mysterium.
And it's not like the dresser fell on her and it slid off, like she said, like it went across the room.
He remembered that it was a girl, and in his dream, I was getting strangled or choked.
The woman that was sitting in the in-style in the floor was no longer like a full-bodied woman. She was like an apparition with like no legs.
And it definitely fits the bill for a poltergeist. I mean, it's more than just making noises at this point when it's bruising you and shaking you off a bed and stuff. My brother and I have always been intrigued by the unexplainable. Like many, we're fascinated with stories of the supernatural, fringe science, and modern-day mysteries.
Though we've seen no first-hand proof of its existence, our minds remain open to the possibility.
Unsatisfied with the so-called evidence on television and the internet, we are choosing to take matters into our own hands and conduct our own interviews and research.
Now we're on a quest to speak with as many people as we can and hear the stories of these events from those who have lived them.
No Hollywood effects or exaggerations, and no hidden agenda. We invite you to listen and decide what and who you believe.
We are the Brothers Mysterium.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Brothers Mysterium. I'm Tommy along with Eric.
Hey yo.
And we are continuing our haunted house series, but first, we're going to ask you for a quick favor. Whatever podcast provider you're listening on, if you could take a moment and rate and review the show, as well as go to facebook.com/The Brothers Mysterium and just give us a like. It's a quick, simple thing you could do that really helps us out, gives us a gauge on how many people are out there listening, appreciating what we do. And with that information, we're able to do bigger, better projects in the future. So we don't often plug ourselves, but we would appreciate it if you could do us that small favor. And now with that out of the way, it's time for our latest haunted house episode. And Eric, these are two ladies that you actually tracked down.
Yeah, this is a friend of mine and her roommate, and she had told me not too long ago that she had some experiences, and these experiences were very intense, and it stuck with them. And I was going over there to interview my friend Christine, and it just so happened that her roommate Jen was there, so I got to talk to both of them, which was awesome. Because it's always good in Tommy's book when you have two people who can
confirm and validate.
Review, and yes. Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll just jump right into their story, because it's a pretty good one, where they believe they had a very malevolent spirit in the home that they were renting.
And just a quick note, this is the same Christine who had the horse story from Ringwood Manor in our Animal Spirits episode, correct?
Indeed.
On that note, let's open the door to this house of hauntedness.
The Brothers
Mysterium. We were only there for about six months.
Sharing their haunted house experience in this episode are Christine and Jen.
September to February.
That's Jen.
September to February of 2005.
And that's Christine.
And into 2006.
So, back in 2005, a 19-year-old Christine is looking for a place to live. And, like most 19-year-olds, she can't afford to live on her own. So she's also in the market for a roommate. This is how she meets Jen. The two strangers end up renting a place together in Lodi,
in New Jersey, in Bergen County.
Incorporated in 1894. Lodi is a suburban neighborhood located about 20 miles west of New York City. Lodi is named after a city in Lombardy, Italy, and though it's not a bad place to live, it's a far cry from its Italian counterpart. As is typically the case with haunted homes, this one is pretty old.
How old would you say the house was?
We found out. It was early 1900s.
According to the property records that we found, this house was originally built in 1905.
Just to set up a picture for you, it was like a 4-family house. We were upstairs from our landlord, so the door went straight to a shared hallway that went downstairs to the front door.
So, Christine and Jen settle in, and naturally, they develop a daily routine. Every morning, Christine wakes up to an empty house. This is because Jen is the first one out the door each day.
She would get up and go to school in the morning very early. She would be up like maybe 3 hours before me.
Christine would then discover, over and over and over again, that Jen had left their front door wide open.
It took me a minute to approach her about it, where I'd get up in the morning and she had already left and the door would be wide open, and it was cold, so I finally said something to her. I'd requested that she would close the door and lock it behind her, and she said that she did. She would deadbolt it and lock the knob. There was also a chain on the inside that we would leave locked when we were home. Being my first time out, it was scary in a new town, didn't know anyone.
Upon hearing that Jen was not only closing the door, but also properly locking it every single day, the two decided to switch up their routine.
So I would get up with her after a while and lock it and make sure it was locked, and we would physically watch the door lock so that she can go on with her day, and I would get up and the door would be open again, undeadbolted, doorknob unlocked, wide open. It took me probably a couple weeks to suggest that there was some kind of paranormal happening going on. Eventually I did, and she had agreed. We were nervous to tell each other since we were both still strangers, and we started looking deeper into it, and once it was initiated, there was just a lot more things that started happening over the course of the next 5 months. It started with the dresser. It started with she walked into her room, which
I was unpacking a box, sitting down on the floor unpacking a box. So we just moved in. I don't even think it was a month yet.
And when she went towards her dresser, her dresser basically tipped over towards her, and her old school 6-disc CD changer with attached speakers came flying off of it and landed on the floor.
Across the room.
We had the same one in the living room, which we can get to in a minute. But that scared us on so many levels because we didn't know exactly what we were dealing with. If they were messing with us, if it were playful, if it were vindictive.
No, I was still the floor is uneven.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is at this point, where were you on your beliefs towards the supernatural?
We made more excuses than we should have.
But were you a believer before moving in here?
Absolutely.
And were you a believer before you moved in there?
No, I always thought I was crazy when I was a kid, and then I kind of grew out of it, and then this was my first experience as an adult.
Okay.
Or a young adult, whatever.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
Based on the events that unfold throughout this episode, Eric and I have concluded that the entity associated with Jen and Christine's experience is most likely a poltergeist. So from here on out, this classification will serve as the baseline from which we'll consider all that follows. In German, poltergeist literally means noisy ghost, and that's because these types of supernatural entities are known for being loud and, noisy. However, these noises are more often than not the result of the much more menacing and frightening physical disturbances that are a poltergeist's real MO. Just take the famous movie, for example, the appropriately named film, Poltergeist.
They're here.
Sweetie. You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones!
Poltergeist. It knows what scares you.
In most poltergeist hauntings, there's usually one person or location on which the spirit focuses most of its energy. This person or location is generally known as an epicenter, and if the event with the dresser hasn't already given it away, in this specific case, the epicenter is likely Jen and her room.
There were puddles of water forming on the floor. There were just very weird things going on.
We vacated it because of that experience I had in the room. Remember with the throat?
I think now's a good time to tell that story.
Me?
Yeah.
No, you tell
You have to tell it from your end.
So I went to bed one night, so I'm really still skeptical, but it's pretty much leading. Really, at this point, you couldn't really get away from the fact that this is what it was. And I'm in my bed, and I just start seeing all this crazy stuff. There's this woman on the floor sitting Indian style, and there was like something brown in front of her that almost looked like the shells of like a centipede, but giant. You know what I'm talking about? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But like no legs or body, just like the shell part of it. That was very big, a couple feet long, you know. And I don't know. I still don't know what it was. And there was a boy. There was a boy, but I don't remember if he was in the room or no. He was in the doorway. That's right. He was in the doorway. And then there was a man outside the window and in a hood. And it was raining. It really wasn't raining, but it was raining, I guess, when I was seeing this.
Like, you felt it was raining in the room or outside?
Outside.
Outside, okay.
And I tried to, like, shake it off or something, but I couldn't. And, like I almost told her, like, to shut up.
Shut up!
And she got pissed. So she started showing me with her hurting Christine. And then these other skulls in the corner, like behind me, like up in the corners behind me with everything was purple and green and black.
So it was she showed you images of her hurting
Christine,
you, Christine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was always through the throat, right?
Yeah, she shoved something through your throat. So I was so terrified that I couldn't get out of my bed. So I called Christine on my cell phone, which is back then it was like, shitty little Nokia phones, I think.
Yeah,
it wasn't even a flip phone.
Flip phones. Oh, okay.
It wasn't even a flip phone.
I'm the last man on earth with a flip phone. So.
When she came in, she had her boyfriend over at the time too. She came in, and I didn't even say anything. She knew. Remember?
Yeah.
And so then she took me to the living room and she hung out with me for at least an hour. This is in the middle of the night too. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm all right, go to bed, and I was on the futon because that was our couch at the time.
Nice.
and so I tried to go back to sleep. Christine went back in the room and I tried to go back to sleep, which was absurd now that I'm thinking about it. And she came, the woman that was sitting Indian style in the floor, was no longer like a full-bodied woman. She was like an apparition with like no legs, and she came flying around the corner, like up high, like closer to the ceiling, swooped down, grabbed me by my leg, and shook me off the whole futon.
So physically moved you?
Physically moved me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And left bruises.
Yeah, I had a handprint bruises on my thigh. Right, my thigh.
Your inner thigh, they were like this.
Yeah.
On the inside of her thigh, fingertips in.
I think that's when I packed up my shit and ran away, right?
Yeah, there was, we started to try to find alternative ways to get rid of it. In the meantime, still having to go home to this place every night.
Was that the morning that I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just packed up my books for school, and I don't think I could change fast enough, and I just got in my car, had a nervous breakdown, and got to school at like 6 a.m. or something like that. Which I think I went to school in New York and Long Island, so it was a long drive.
After recognizing that something is definitely up with Jen's bedroom, the two roommates make a logical decision.
We vacated it very, very shortly after that.
We literally shared a bed for the whole time we were there.
Yeah. We had both of our down comforters because the heat never worked. There were times where we would be laying in bed and hear...
But that could have been just the place, the heat, in all honesty.
Even though it was upstairs.
Yeah. Sometimes the heat would come blasting. It was water heat, and it would just come, like, blasting out.
Screaming. This crazy noise.
Yeah.
Just because a poltergeist may seem to have a preference toward a specific area of the home it's haunting, that does not mean that it will strictly limit its activity to that one spot.
I would get home before her from work, and I was washing dishes once, and our toaster oven that wasn't plugged in just started sparking, and little flames came out of it.
I was there for that.
You were there for that?
It melted the can opener that was on top of it?
Yep, it melted the can opener.
It wasn't even plugged in, I don't think.
No.
Yeah.
No, it just kind of went ablaze. our towels would just always be wet. There were times where we would be laying in bed and we'd hear stomping around in the kitchen. Our landlords have called us to tell us to keep it down and to stop jumping. Meanwhile, we're laying in bed. There were times that our pots fell. Remember when all of our pots fell out of the... Yeah. We were laying in bed and all of our pots just flew out of the cabinet.
Sometimes, pretty often, we would lay in bed and we almost always fell asleep like clasping arms or something like that. But we would hear her walking around the walls of the room.
Up the wall,
across the ceiling, down the wall, like that.
So you've definitely established that it was a female.
It was a female.
After you saw
Absolutely.
It was established that she was a succubus and she was appearing in our dreams, which we'll get to. You know, like that's kind of that was a breaking point for us.
I think she was looking to figure out what happened to that boy. I don't know who that man was, but she was trying to figure out where that boy was.
Okay.
And we think that she died via strangulation because there was a time where you know how I do Reiki?
For those unfamiliar with it, Reiki is a Japanese form of alternative healing in which the healer uses their hands to transfer a curative energy into their patient.
I was doing Reiki on Jenny, and
which was not a good, smart choice.
It's not a good idea.
No.
We thought it would be, but it was not.
Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she started channeling.
According to the spiritualist tradition, channeling is when a spirit or ghost temporarily takes control of a living person's body. Most often, a medium will invite in a spirit at the request of customers who wish to make contact with the other side. But in other cases, such as this, a person can unfortunately become an unwilling vessel for the dead. This is known as spirit possession, spirit obsession, or a walk-in, because an unwanted spirit has walked into your body. Once inside the living body, a spirit will attempt to make contact, either through a written message, known as automatic writing, or by manipulating the vocal cords of the person whom they've possessed, causing the inhabited body to speak in a bizarre or unusual manner.
And I didn't know how to break her out of it because I have no experience in that. And I got her out of it by counting because, like, I guess her mind redirected to my voice as I was, like, doing something in sequence. And she woke up and she asked me to bring her back because she started to see what happened. So.
Oh, so when you.
But you did it though, right?
No.
That's like a.
I was good, huh?
Yeah.
No,
I needed to know what happened.
So you started to have like a vision of.
Yeah. I was very visually connected with this woman. Yeah.
Whenever people would come visit us and they would stay the night, we would have them stay in our room, in our bed with us because we didn't want anything to happen to them.
Not always the case, but then I don't think anyone ever lasted in that place thinking it was normal.
No, everyone would end up back in our room or in a group. If there was a group, it would be okay. But if it was an individual person, we had two different people that in their sleep strangled me 2 separate times.
Meaning they had a dream where they were strangling you, or that you physically woke up to them strangling you?
Me. Yeah, twice.
2 different people.
2 different people.
Wow.
And one of them remembered his dream. He remembered that it was a girl, and in his dream, I was getting strangled or choked.
So that seems to be a common theme, is you being injured in the throat somehow. Mm-hmm. So do you think this somehow relates to, like you said, you thought this, or you both said you thought the woman was strangled to death?
Yeah,
so
quite possibly.
Somehow it was some kind of...
She's definitely,
reliving it through you in a way.
It was definitely a man that killed her.
She hated her, too.
She hated me. I think because I kind of picked up on her, and it came to the point where, you know, we would come home and just try to make peace with her. Just come in and be like, I'm not here to mess with you. I'm okay. Like, just stay away from me, and we could try to coexist.
We try to ignore it.
And it would just make it worse.
What about when Claudia and Dina came over?
Oh, there was one night where we had 3 people over, and I mean, you know, we didn't really talk to too many people about what was going on in the house, only because we were kind of curious to see if anyone would pick up on it on their own, and also we didn't want to deter them from coming over, you know?
Right, yeah.
I also don't want to sound crazy. Not everybody believes in that stuff.
Yeah, we're still new friends.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you know, you don't want to just be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? Oh, by the way, it's a demon in our house.
So we just started the night. Like, we were maybe hanging out for a half hour at
Keep in mind, I used to drink with these people all the time.
And we just started drinking vodka crayons. There were 3 other people besides us. They were maybe on their first beer. I was drinking vodka cran, so were you.
They were drinking beer.
All at once. One girl ran to the bathroom and she started throwing up. Her sister went to the sink and started throwing up blood. And I passed out.
Christine literally just passed out, fell down and cracked her head on the floor. And yes, it may have been vodka cran, but it was not more than 1 drink.
I didn't even finish my first drink.
Yeah, it was by no means that shoot because she was drunk.
And all of this occurred simultaneously?
Literally at the same time.
Wow.
Literally. So
meanwhile, my friend Josue was high, having a nervous breakdown in the corner, but that's because he was probably high.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't eat together. There was nothing that we could have had that made us like that.
Yeah, we all came from different areas,
Jen had put me to bed, and we were afraid that I had a concussion, which
it was
I probably
tile.
did.
She hit her head.
I hit my head on
hard, like you heard it, like ring.
Yeah.
Porcelain tile. So she put me to bed, and she was checking my eyes every couple hours or whatever. And every time she would go to sleep, which was normally next to me at this point, she would have a chapstick, a hair tie, and her cell phone all next to each other, and a glass of water. So I woke up early in the morning, like 7, 8 o'clock, to her mom calling her. And I got up and I found her in her room laying next to one of the girls that was sick, handed her her phone and went back to bed. In the night, I remember waking up and seeing her looking at me. She was laying next to me like she was asleep and just watching me.
Like eyes wide open.
Eyes wide open looking at me. And I was like, okay, like I know she's here, whatever. So then later on in the morning, I asked her why she got up and left during the night. And she said, I never laid down next to you. She told me that she never laid in bed with me. She ended up just taking care of the girls. And, you know, she just checked on me until I asked her not to anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were okay at that point. It was hours later.
But she went to bed with her
my
stuff
hair
next to her.
tied, all my stuff next to me was in the other room next to her.
It wasn't until they had made the decision to move out and end their lease that they decided to bring the happenings up to their landlord.
I brought it up because I was speaking to Paranormal State at the time. This is back before the show had broadcasted and they only had an ad in a newspaper.
For those of you unaware, Paranormal State was a television show on A&E Network that ran for 5 seasons, from 2007 to 2011. It's centered around Ryan Buell, who founded the Pennsylvania State University Paranormal Research Society, and the show accompanied them on their paranormal investigations. Interestingly enough, we were in talks with Ryan about having him appear on our show last year when he was suddenly arrested.
Ryan Buell looks much different in this mugshot than fans are used to seeing the celebrity ghost hunter. Buell was arrested this week, facing charges of theft and receiving stolen property. Buell, who has a huge following, is known as a paranormal expert who appeared on the cable TV series Paranormal State, looking for ghosts or trying to prove that life after death is real. Buell was a focus of a troubleshooter investigation in 2014 when fans said he did his own disappearing act by selling tickets to his Conversations with the Dead tour, but then canceling those shows and not refunding ticket holders money. After my story, some fans did get their refund, but Buell didn't stop attracting fans. He continued to offer events and merchandise for sale, and I continued to get complaints that he didn't deliver. Now the law has caught up with Buell. He's facing 3 different charges in Pennsylvania, where Buell was last known to be living. His mom also speaking out on Buell's public Facebook page. She writes to Buell's fans, please stop enabling his situation by sending money, buying tickets to events that may never occur, buying merchandise, phone calls you may never get, paying money to watch him on Twitch, and giving him offers of shelter. She goes on writing, I'm pleading with you out of love for my son, and I'm frightened by what his situation has become.
Okay.
So I called them and spoke to someone that was documenting our story. He would call me every day or every other day and ask me what happened the night before. And, you know, after a while, he asked if they can come and film. So obviously we would have needed our landlord's approval, and they said absolutely not. So I brought it up to the daughter. I mean, the couple
when we had given her notice that we were out, that's really when we brought it up.
Yeah,
we were like,
we had
really,
nothing to lose
like,
at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever considered that maybe there's something here other than us or other than you, like that there might be some kind of spirit in here? And she said, like a ghost? No, what are you, crazy? So we just never brought it up again. We ended up going to a woman who's a Wiccan priestess, and she made us a basket of stuff to take care of the house with, and I think it just angered her more. We had people in, like, spreading holy water. We tried everything.
That's what my next question was going to be. Besides the TV show you contacted, what type of people did you invite to the house to come scope it out? Because I remember you told me, I never actually came over, but I remember, like, trying to hear as much of the story as possible and try and research and figure out exactly what's going on.
The Wiccan women refused to come over. I actually, through her, know 2 other psychics that work through Ringwood Manor, which is a very haunted manor in New Jersey, and they refused to come even into the town. They refused to speak to us. They didn't want anything to do with it. They were terrified by our stories and weren't interested in trying to help us with it. Aside from that, we called 2 people that, not to say that they were priests by any stretch of it at all, but they came with holy water and said some prayers. Like they were devout Catholics, and they definitely felt that there was something in our house. We had sweetgrass. We did Indian things. We did we
tried all different.
Pretty much anything you can get your hands on. Yeah.
Because who knows? I kind of believe that it probably has something to do with what that person believed in too.
Yeah.
Okay.
As well as
which is why we kept holy water. But not to say that that's something that we would believe personally that it would work, but we've read some stuff and apparently it has worked for other
right
possessions and
it may
stuff.
be like you were saying, like if someone's belief is triggered to that line, then that may be have a personal connection with them. So.
We ended up having meltdowns and jabbing holes into the walls to see if there was any kind of evidence left. And that's when we realized that we were crazy.
What
and we needed
happening
to stop.
in that wall? Was it
there was stumping?
Something was coming out of the wall. So we're like, that's it. Well, let's open it up. And we opened it up, and nothing was in there.
Of course not. We just ended up going crazy.
But you also never got to explore the other part of the house when we lived there. So
never.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, the house was redone in a really weird way. Like our bathroom, do you remember that wall was built in front of the window?
Yeah, there was a wall in front of the window, halfway in front of the window.
Sometimes when I when I could see the stuff, I would see how it was before. And clearly was not a house for 4 people when it was first built. It was definitely
wasn't a 4-family. It was something else.
So it underwent these renovations at some point.
Absolutely,
which, from what I've heard,
I would say probably in the 70s.
Sometimes that can stir things up a bit if there is a presence in the house.
She was a very evil, vindictive person.
And did you ever look into and I think you might have mentioned this to me, maybe not, records for murders in the town?
We looked up for a while. We asked other police officers that I had contact with at the time to look into it. Nothing ever came up.
No.
There was only so much we can get our hands on by not owning the place.
Right.
So we can't really have access to blueprints from the town, stuff like that. It wasn't our house.
Right.
But we knew that
at least to our knowledge, or we tried, but we were also young, so.
Yeah.
In our search, we didn't find anything that stated there was a murder or even a natural death of any kind on the property. We even decided to give diedinhouse.com a run, which is the type of website that we briefly referenced in episode 20 and provides a service that is pretty self-explanatory. The site came back with nothing. It is important to note that each state has different laws regarding the privacy of vital records and property tax records. And in New Jersey, where some of these privacy statutes are the strictest of all, disclosure of a death on a property is not required by law. Though our search didn't turn up anything about the specific property, it is a point worth mentioning that this house, the one in which Christine and Jen resided for those few months, is only 4 blocks away from the site of what is possibly one of the most grisly killings in all of Lodi's history, now known as the Angel Lounge murders. Back in 1963, a police sergeant and a probationary officer came across 2 wanted criminals hiding out in a small Lodi club named the Angel Lounge. The 2 wanted men, Frank Falco and Thomas Trantino, jumped the officers, beat them into submission, and then supposedly ordered the cops to strip down before executing them with their own service pistols. Though there is no apparent or direct connection between these events and those that Christine and Jen experienced, maybe, at the most simplified level, one can see how a tragedy and the grief resulting from evil happenings of the past may have the potential to open the gateway and set the stage for other malevolent forces.
So you would say with 100% absolute certainty this place was very, very haunted?
100%.
I went from believing that there was no such thing and that anything I ever saw as a kid was just because I was young and stupid or crazy. And to, I mean, there's no possibility that was not there.
Right.
There's no way that we both saw the things that we saw.
And it wasn't just us, too.
But we were able to match up our dreams. We were having the same dreams.
The same dreams. Yeah.
And we were able to dictate our dreams to each other in the morning like they actually happened. Like there was no blank spots. Our story and our dreams were
matched up. Although sometimes our roles would be reversed.
Our roles were always backwards as the people that we are. Like she always kind of had my back. Like I was like a little sister to her for a while. So
we still are.
It was the other way around. Like I was watching out for her and taking care of her in dreams. Like, but when it came to the woman in the house that we later referred to as Dead Betty, we had no other name for her.
Right, so you just invented
We just named her. We had no idea what her name was. There were, I mean, we could describe what she looked like to each other. We both knew.
Very long, curly hair.
Yeah, it was matted. It was like, she wasn't taking proper care of it. She was pale. She had darker eyes, but her skin was really light. Her hair was just out of control. Like, I don't know if that's because she was young or because she was dead. I don't know if it was like an image that she wanted us to see.
If it was years ago. So what was confusing was like she was almost dressed as if it was like a long enough time ago to be like a longer time ago, I would say.
Yeah.
But the man in the window had a hoodie on, and that's the one thing I never understood. It's like a sweatshirt hoodie, like that didn't exist back then.
And did the man ever surface again, or he was just there?
Yes, there was another time I saw. She was showing me something, and they were on a train, and he was on the train, and he was also in a hoodie. But the train and everything else, it was old fashioned. It was really weird.
Could you pinpoint like an era? Like was it like 1800s?
I think if you showed me pictures, I could pinpoint it, but I'm not educated enough in history to say about clothing anyway.
40s.
I would say probably close to 40s.
Yeah. She was wearing, like kind of. The shoes were black, like Mary Jane's, right? She was always wearing.
I remember her shoes. I just remember her dress so clearly.
But the kids started coming out a little more later on, towards the end, and we felt comfortable with him.
Is the man and the kid not the same?
No,
the man was not a spirit. He wasn't really there. It was her showing.
So it was like a memory of something.
Yeah, the boy was actually there.
The boy ended up being there after a while. Like it took a while for him to come through. We don't know who he was, but the weird part about
he was just. He wasn't scary.
Right.
No, he didn't try to intimidate us. He's been in our bed.
Yeah.
Like there was a time.
There's been multiple times where we were laying in bed and we felt something on the bed.
Well, we had 2 down comforters on the bed, and there was a time where we heard little footsteps, and then it was just like whoosh right into our bed, and there was just like a little form in between us. So we don't know who it was, if she was using him to make us feel more comfortable. I don't know if he was actually there, if he was something that she wanted us to see. Our vision was so skewed towards the end because we were so terrified that it's hard to depict what was her being strong and what was us being, weak and being able to see these things that she wanted us to see. At this point, I can't say what it was.
Another thing we did was take pictures, and I would always know where she was, or sometimes she wasn't there, but almost always she was there. So wherever she was, I could take a picture and there would be orbs. And then to test the theory, I would take a picture where I knew she was not, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And there wouldn't be orbs. And
we watched her through the digital camera lens on the screen. We could watch her moving around.
Yeah. Like real time, not from pictures.
And what the image looked clear, or was it just like you said, like orbs?
It was orbs.
Okay.
It was orbs.
A lot of orbs, clusters.
There was
of orbs.
one picture of her silhouette. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. We tried to take pictures of the outside. We took it from all these different vantage points. We would turn the water on and take pictures, just because she seemed to have her energy was a little stronger. Water's an energy source, and the fact that the house was heated by water was kind of like a catch for us.
Yeah, that's kind of.
It would shoot out steamed water.
Every room was run by water.
Okay. And then that explains like the shower activity and things like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
The shower was a terrifying place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were very scared to shower. We would literally watch each other while we were in there.
Made us get closer, that's for sure.
Yeah, we went from not knowing each other the day we moved in to
maybe that was the ghost's intent, was an icebreaker. Yeah.
The brothers. Mysterium.
So this is an intense and wacky and wild experience for sure. Again, a lot of things we've touched on in the first 2 episodes of this haunted house series. The first one being the door opening and closing on its own. In this case, what's interesting to me is one girl would leave and claim that she locked the door, and they said it had like a knob lock, which you turn, as well as the chain, which you slide in, but the door would still be open. So again, that's a little more movement than just like wind or something, moving a door if you're actually like taking the chain out and...
Oh yeah, those things don't come out for
Yeah, and like clicking the lock and then opening the door. So that was very intriguing.
I've even done this at my house where I'll have the chain on and I'll go out like the garage door. Just I'm breaking my own house here. And I'll open the door and try and reach through and undo the chain, and I still can't do it.
Also, another good Mysterium homeowning tip is you should always know how to break into your own house.
Yes, recently I found out that I don't know how to break into my own house, and I actually ended up having a friend elbow one of the windows and smashing it out, and that's how we got in.
Well, then I guess you still sort of broke into your own house.
No, I definitely did.
The next incident that happened here is a little more crazy. It's slightly dangerous, where Jen is almost like crushed when her dresser suddenly tips over on top of her, and her gigantic CD player with the speakers is thrown across the room. For you young kids out there, you young Thundercats that don't know what a CD player is, before the days of MP3s and phones and iPods and stuff, there were these giant, clunky boxes that played these little circles. And so if you had a 6 CD changer, it would have been a gigantic CD player. So it's a heavy thing.
With the speakers.
With the speakers, all connected by wires. So it's pretty big. And
yeah, that would hurt like hell if that thing was tossed.
Oh, yeah. And it's not like the dresser fell on her and it slid off. Like she said, like it went across the room.
Yeah.
So that thing was moving. So something we heard here that we hadn't heard before is this idea of puddles of water forming. Which they mentioned, and they said, like, you know, it's not really in the bathroom, it's like a leak, it's just sort of a puddle, which I don't really know what to make of that.
That's the kind of thing where I don't really know who you could take it to, but I would have collected some of that and seen if I could have gotten like a test done. That could have been ectoplasm or something, you know what I mean?
It could have been anything.
Yeah, or it could have just been a plain old leak in the house, but well, you would have known if it was leaking, I guess.
Yeah, there's one thing that I do wish, which we encourage everyone to do, and of course it's easy to say in hindsight, but like Joey O from our first episode of the Haunted House series was able to get a couple videos and a photo. I wish, with so much going on, that Jen and Christine had gotten some photos. Like the next thing that happened was the weird episode where Jen sees a woman on her floor. She sees the hooded man for the first time outside her window. She gets freaked out. Sees all these weird images, so she goes to sleep on the futon where she's literally ripped off it and then has these bruises, like handprints.
See, that tosses it all right into the class 3 haunting.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, it doesn't get any more intense, really.
And that's where I wish they had taken pictures of these bruises, of these handprints, just because...
I think at that point, though, it's kind of like your mindset isn't necessarily like, hey, let's document this and share it.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's why I said it's easier in hindsight to be like, I should, you know, like when you're getting chased out of a house by a demon that's beating the crap out of you, you're not going to be like, let me get this on video.
Like Christine said, they made more excuses for it than they probably should have. So at that point, you know, Jen was probably telling herself, like, well, it was actually probably just this that did, you know, rip me off the futon.
Now, they actually at one point said it was a succubus, which I don't believe it is. That's more of sort of a sexual female demon trying to seduce you. They do enter your dreams and stuff, and there's a whole lot of dream stuff going on here.
For sure,
But before we hit that, another commonality we get here is that feeling that someone's behind them. And they didn't say it was even sometimes. They said it was basically all the time. Like you're in the shower, you're asleep, you're awake, you're watching TV. Basically always felt like someone was behind them, someone was watching them. They were never alone.
Yeah, I remember talking to Christine a lot during this period in her life, and she was terrified of where she lived, which is...
Oh, yeah. It sucks.
Yeah.
Home is your safe place, and if you can't go home, it leaves you with nowhere to go to be safe.
Exactly. And then what that does to you, you know, mentally, you can't sleep, you can't, you know.
And it definitely fits the bill for a poltergeist. I mean, it's more than just making noises at this point when it's bruising you and shaking you off a bed and stuff. One good thing is at least they had each other, because, number one, they were able to support each other and just help one another get through living there, but also it shows that it's not like one of them wasn't like schizophrenic and being like, oh my God, I hear voices through the radio, and I saw a woman or this or that. They were both experiencing this stuff.
Right.
They had some other things that weren't as crazy, such as heat blasts. They said it'd be cold in the apartment, all of a sudden it'd be hot. Or rush through. That could be the heating. It's an old house, whatever.
Right, yeah, that stuff happens.
The landlord was constantly annoyed at them for stomping around or jumping or making noise, but they said they were in bed. They could also hear the noises. It wasn't them.
I want to know if skeletons are in that landlord's past.
Yeah, that makes you wonder too.
Maybe I don't know. He's so close-minded to it. Maybe that was his mother or something like that, or
it could be
ex-wife or something.
Yeah. Although they did say later that he didn't really speak much English.
Right, but still.
But I guess he could have been hiding his secrets. Cabinets opening, a common theme we heard with pots flying out all the time.
Yeah, that's pretty. That could go back to I leave open all the time.
They did hear footsteps walking around, not only on the floor though, but even up the walls and the ceiling, which is very creepy.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it all comes back to sort of this woman, and were things who they call Dead Betty. And what really got me was that they both had what we called, if you listen to episode 15, our Q&A, it ended with a story from Christina, who was talking about a dream invasion. And this is definitely, there's some dream invading going on by not only Dead Betty, who the woman that they saw, but the hooded man. But it's interesting that they had similar dreams, and they both could describe the woman. Now, obviously, we don't know if one of them had a dream and then explained to the other one what it looked like, but it sounded like they both saw her. She looked exactly the same in both dreams. The hooded man always had a hood on no matter where he was. And Jen said an interesting thing, which was when she would leave the house and go home, she would have normal dreams. When she would come back to the house, she would always have these terrible dreams of this woman. They said, they saw her getting choked. They saw this happening. They almost felt like they were being choked. Other people had dreams.
Images of Christine getting...
Right.
And then Christine was woken up by people choking her.
Yeah.
Twice.
So there definitely is some weird...
That's wild.
It's super strange.
And I've known her pretty much my entire life, and she would never make this stuff up,
Right. Yeah, and it's weird that it only happened in that apartment. There's the weird incident where Christine was doing Reiki on Jen, and she was relaxed and opened her mind and was, again, almost, it's almost like the equivalent psychological mental attacks. As soon as your mind is relaxed, whether you're sleeping or meditating.
It's almost as bad as the Ouija board, kind of. It's like an invitation to bring something in. Your psychic defenses are down, and so ghost is getting in there.
Right. And now an interesting note here is, so they tried to reach out to people for help, and they reached out to Paranormal State, but they also said they had Wiccan priestesses prepare a basket. They had some devout Catholics come over and with holy water and Bibles and stuff. They tried Indian things, they said, which I'm assuming are Native American rituals they found online. None of them really worked. But
no, and I even remember trying something on my own, because like I said, Christine had been in touch with me a lot during this, where I wrote a letter
to the spirit.
Kind of, yeah. It was almost like a letter of intention to help me focus and see if I didn't really have a clear idea of what I was doing, but it was the best I could think of at the time.
So wait, explain this to me and the listeners. So wait, you went to the house.
I'd never been there. No.
So
she called me,
and she said,
she's like, she had no idea. She's like, what do I do? And
so then you wrote a letter,
and I put it under my pillow.
So you wrote a letter to the spirit in their house?
No, I wrote a letter saying that their house is safe and it's this and that, and it was more to just reaffirm good intention in my mind for them. You know what I'm saying?
So
it's very
what? Okay, so hold on. So she calls you and she says, listen, we're being attacked by ghosts. We have bruises. Crazy stuff's happening.
Yeah.
What do we do? So you wrote a letter to yourself, put it under your pillow, and went to bed while they were being tormented in this house?
And obviously, it didn't do
what the hell? What the hell? Wait, what? Tell me what the letter said.
It was just
But how did it start? Dear Santa? You used the tooth fairy method?
Yeah.
What did the letter say exactly? Not exactly. Not exactly.
It wasn't even addressed to anyone. It just said Christine and Jen are safe in the house. Everything's fine. Stuff like that. And it was more to just
positive vibes.
Right. And it didn't work, like I said. I did have $20 under my pillow the next day.
But all your teeth were missing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is just kind of an insane, wild story. This one doesn't have as much of a slow build as some of the others. A lot going on. And this is, I believe, the first time in the show, which I've thought about if we should do a topic on this or a whole show on it, where I have said many times, I've made the outrageous claim that I invented the technique of going into a haunted place and challenging the ghost and cursing at it and screaming it because I am not afraid to fight a ghost because I don't think that a ghost could harm me. But obviously, people do have accounts of being scratched, bitten. In her case, she had these bruises, handprints.
And even choked by real people.
Right, choked.
Who were,
so
possessed or whatever.
There are stories of physical harm being done by spirits, allegedly. And obviously, that's what happened in this case, where she had these bruises, like, deep handprints on her legs. So that's the first time on the show where we've had somebody who was physically attacked and harmed.
I believe you didn't say you'd fight a ghost. I believe you said you yelled at the ghost, and in situation A, if it was the ghost of the old woman you were friends with, you'd have nothing to be afraid of. Or situation B, you'd fight a ghost as long as it was possessing a doll.
Well, those were those exact scenarios. I've used it in other instances. So far, I've never had to go toe-to-toe with a ghost. Could I even fight a ghost? Now I'm overthinking this. The ghost can hit me, I can't hit a ghost, so I might have been flawed in my logic.
Season 3, ghost fights.
Unless using sheer intimidation by going and screaming, the ghost was like, I'm not going to fight this guy.
You want to go to Michigan and fight Mrs. Briggs?
I might. Which, if you haven't listened to, part 2 of this Haunted House series is the Mrs. Briggs episode. Yeah, I mean, in conclusion here, it's just a wild story. I kind of wish there was some sort of resolution where it's like they found out who the woman was and they were able to set her spirit free, or at least like solve the murder if it's like a cold case and they never knew who strangled her. But in this one, it might just be that they lived in this house and this crazy stuff happened and their only choice was to just move away, which then also makes you wonder, like, is somebody there now? Are they going through the same anguish and odd, dangerous experiences? Or was the house demolished? Or does somebody live there now and they're happy? And then, that makes you wonder too. Like, was it just something about these two young ladies that infuriated this female spirit? Or was it just their imagination, which is hard to say because it was two of them experiencing similar things? So it's crazy. This is one of the wilder stories, experiences we've had on the show. And I want to thank them both for sharing it.
On the next episode of The Brothers Mysterium.
It's definitely, I would say, the most emotionally intense interview we've ever done.
There was to us a very, very negative, I'll say evil, threatening feeling in the air.
It's very interesting that Emma drew the connection between her physical state leading to an emotional state, which then led to the demon coming in.
He asked what brought me back to confession after so many years, and I was very honest with him, and I told him that we had some phenomena occur in our house and that I needed help, and I asked him if he would come to our house and do a house blessing, and he very readily agreed.
Poltergeist clips are from Steven Spielberg's 1982 film, Poltergeist, produced by MGM and distributed by MGM and United Artists Entertainment. The song heard while describing the house was Harry McDonoghue's A Picnic for Two from 1905. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so by emailing us at thebrothersmysterium@gmail.com, at Mysterium Bros for Twitter and Instagram, and youtube.com/thebrothersmysterium and facebook.com/thebrothersmysterium. As always, we ask that you rate and review the show on whichever podcast provider you prefer. Sometimes that's tricky to say, but if you do that, it's a big help for us, and we really appreciate it. And something else we really appreciate is you listening to our show. So, thank you. We'll catch you next time.